Hey guys, welcome to another live stream on Balloon Hit Productions. I'm your host, as usual. My name is Marcelo Nostroza, and this evening I'll be talking about the season 2 finale of Star Trek Strange New Worlds, season 2, episode 10, entitled Hegemony. I hope I'm saying that right, but as I have been for most of the season, I will not be all by my lonesome talking about this episode. I would like to welcome back to my channel my good friend PJ. Welcome back, PJ.
Hello, thank you for having me for this
It's a
interesting discussion that it's going to
yeah,
be.
it's a pleasure having you back yet again. Anyway, folks, in this season finale for Star Trek: Strange New Worlds season 2, Captain Pike and the rest of the crew go in to save Captain Patel from a Gorn attack that basically the Gorn decide to invade a planet kind of on the edge of kind of on the edge of Federation space that adopted this sort of 1950s style sort of deal. So Captain Pike, against orders, go to save Captain Patel and her crew, and while they're going to do that, they encounter the Gorn, and crazy emotional shit goes down. So, with the table being set, PJ, what did you think of this episode?
Well, I thought it was kind of dumb. Uh, Characters do things that don't make any sense. For example, just to jump ahead a bit, on the Cayuga, I hope I'm saying that right, Patel's ship, when they find the wreckage, half the saucer section or a chunk of it is still intact. They know that there are people over there. They technically, because of the jamming signal, can't detect who's alive and who's not. But when we get over there, we find out that Nurse Chapel survived. So wouldn't you presume that other people survived as well? And the fact that they don't even think about the other crew on that saucer section when they fling it into the planet to knock out
You're
the...
oh, okay, but you're talking about the crew of the Enterprise, right? Because the crew of the Enterprise end up flinging the saucer section of the Cayuga into a planet, basically, to sort of destroy the transporter signal that the Gorn have, right? Is that what you're
That's what I'm
having?
saying. They
Right.
completely neglect to acknowledge the lives of the people. And I really run into that as well. And another thing, Pike's, people have pointed out that a lot of this show is defying orders. There's a lot of insurrection in this series. Starfleet be damned. I'm gonna do what I can. And what's the deal? I'm gonna be like Seinfeld now. What's the deal with the planet and these people settling on this planet? They, to save money, they're using some kind of backlot from some other show. Someone said it was the
Jack
Jack Reacher
Reacher.
show.
Hmm.
Uh, I guess that's true. I never looked it up, but it the fact that it saves money, so you don't have to make a completely alien world for these colonists to be in. For example, uh, Insurrection, the film, that entire village was like built for the movie, so that's an elaborate kind of expense for that movie. In this case, they're saving some money. I get it, and it's a kind of trope, like futuristic people obsessed with like antiquity and stuff like this. But why are the people on this planet that they're not sure they can protect them on? So they can go and help them and stuff, but when the Gorn come along, Starfleet's like, well, the Gorn drew this demarcation line. They sent us a picture, and they said, actually, you don't. What basically the Gorn are, I guess, trying to say is, no, you don't have a right to this. We're gonna take over now. And ooh, by the way, you got all these humans down there. Perfect time to breed. And then they find out later in the episode, or they assume, or they surmise, that the Gorn were lured out through a massive solar flare event where, like, Scotty, who we meet in the episode, explains And so it's like locusts, as Sam Kirk puts it. And over and over again in the episode, they're kind of reiterating that, the Gorn are mindless monsters. Now, if you will indulge me for 1 second, Marcelo, I did screen cap some captions of a conversation that Pike has with La'an.
Sure.
And La'an says, "It doesn't make sense. They shouldn't be gathering like that, the younglings." Now, this is a good part of the episode I'm pointing out. She says, they should be fighting for dominance. So they're trying to tell the audience, hey, they're not the mindless monsters that we made them out to be in the previous 2 episodes. That the younglings have been given a task, basically, to do a thing, so they can be directed and controlled, and they're not completely mindless. Then it goes on. They should be fighting for dominance, not working together. And Pike says, if you don't understand them, it means there's something about the Gorn we've yet to discover. Maybe instead of finding a way to fight them, we find some way to reach them, or... And anyway, yeah. But the point of that is that that's the point in the episode where Pike's thinking like Kirk did in Arena, where, of course, I have to fight this thing because they're attacking, but maybe we're encroaching on their space. But there is no question of that. It's just like we made a stupid mistake of putting these people here in a place that we can't protect them from, that Starfleet are such assholes in this episode. And, like, of course Pike is going to defy orders, because April's like, not our problem. And he even says, they didn't attack Starfleet, they attacked the people, and we can't help them. And then both of them talk about them just being monsters. And it's like, and then Text Trek earlier I was watching made a very good point about, there's a scene that really disturbed me that we didn't point out. I'm sorry, I'll hand it over in a second, but this other part that really kind of bothered me that they pointed out was when they're in the ready room and Sam Kirk is talking about killing them, and Mbenga's like, yeah, and La'an's like, yeah, and it's like there's this bloodlust in the room, and like you kind of get it because they've had that attitude toward Klingons and stuff, and people have had that attitude toward Romulans, but it seems like just very just primitive and guttural and not mature enough for these officers. And these characters in this season have been inconsistent in that way, where sometimes they're very smart and sometimes they're very dumb, and it's odd. It's just odd to me. Sorry, Marcelo, I went on a little too long, but go ahead.
No, that's okay. No, I really to back off one of your points when it comes to how Starfleet acts in this episode. We're not really sure if the civilization that's on this planet is a Federation member to begin with, because at the beginning of the episode, when Chapel and oh my God, the what's her name? Patel are on the planet.
Yeah.
She mentions, or they mention in a conversation, that this civilization hasn't even applied for membership in the Federation yet. So if it hasn't applied for membership in the Federation yet, like, did the Federation put them there, or did they get there on their own? There's not.
I don't think that part's not clear. No, I don't think
there's not that much explanation to that whole thing. And as far as, Mbenga's reaction to the Gorn, or La'an's reaction to the Gorn, I think it's justified for Mbenga to react that way, because as we've seen him earlier in this season, he's got some shit. And as we saw last season, La'an has got some shit. So I think their bloodlust is justified. But in reference to how they should react as officers, at this point they don't really know the Gorn, and the only thing that Gorn has shown them I'm not defending their behavior, but I'm just saying the only thing that the Gorn has shown them is violence and no mercy. So why? Look, you might bang up against this, but why should someone who has been shown nothing but violence and nothing but hostility from another civilization? I think that the officers, specifically Mbanga and Laan, are within their right to feel sort of pissed off and to feel, yeah, we should go after these motherfuckers because last time they almost killed us.
Yeah.
And and based on our own experience,
well, in each, I think, sorry to cut you off, but in each encounter with the Gorn, crew members have died.
Right.
So
Right.
like every time they run into these guys, there is like death.
Right.
So there is, and they do this with a lot of species too. Like with the Klingons, like when people have these close, violent encounters with these species, it's hard not to imagine them as anything but the enemy. But what happens in the Star Trek world over and over again is that these sworn enemies end up becoming allies at some point. And with the Gorn, yes, you all those points are like totally valid. The way they portrayed the Gorn in this series is that they are set up to be viewed by our characters as just vicious, merciless monsters, and people run into that, I think, because, and I know people keep going back to Arena, and some people are like, just forget it, forget the continuity issue with Arena, because it's really not clear in that episode the exact history Starfleet has with the Gorn. But the whole point of that was that he's fighting a monster, and that's all him, the crew, and the audience are supposed to see that Gorn officer as. And then at the end, there's this revelation of, they've been pitted against each other, and Kirk's like, I won't kill him, I won't do it, because this is not the road to progress. And that moment in this episode where Pike's like, earlier he's like, they're just monsters, and then he starts changing his mind a bit. I thought that they might go somewhere with that in the second part, and the whole thing with the solar flares, that is obviously going to play into it. But I think people run up against the concept of how they've portrayed the Gorn, and logically, yes, the characters are going to be, but it's sad because it's monster of the movie, monster of the week kind of deal, very derivative of Aliens and other things. It's like Aliens meets Gremlins with the baby Gorn. Mm-hmm. But I do appreciate that they're trying to expand on the Gorn a bit. They're trying to tell the audience that, hey, there's more to them than we told you. So here it is. And still the baby, all the stuff before the climax and the fight with the Gorn and the flinging of the ship, even though that's horrible. Like, they're potentially killing people on that saucer section, and they just don't even care. Sorry, but yeah, you make a very good point about, yes, it makes sense within the story for these characters to be like that, but I just hate that they've made them like that, and that hopefully in the second part we get to see some resolution.
Look,
and they realize, maybe it's not all about killing.
I don't know. I think to fix the Gorn issue, if there is one in Strange New Worlds, they have to show some goddamn intelligent Gorn, some Gorn who can actually speak. If they show a side of the Gorn that is somewhat remorseful, then Captain Pike, Laan, and Mbanga, if they react the way they reacted in part one, won't be justified. But if they keep showing the Gorn in the same way, all these other issues that a lot of fans have aren't really justified, because I believe as a fan, you should focus on what is right in front of your face and not worry about the past. If there's one thing about Strange New Worlds that is evident, these writers twist and almost shatter continuity. So if you don't even think about Arena and just look at what is in front of your face, the way that Mbanga, Laan, and Pike are reacting in this situation is completely justified because, like I said, the Gorn up to this point has showed them nothing but violence. So how do you expect them to act? I yeah, no, go ahead, go ahead.
Yeah, well, that's true. And but the writing in this, I don't really focus too much on criticizing the writing because it's to me it's all a combination. If it's like okay writing but great action and like I can accept fun dumb action, but you have characters like as other people have pointed out, Ortega's
Right.
pointing at a screen on the console on our console of debris next to the planet and asking Pike and number one, "What's that?" I'm like, you and some
It's debris.
people have pointed out, I was like, why doesn't she know what the debris is?
No, no, I think no, no,
And
no,
little
no.
things like that.
Yeah, yeah. I
And
mean,
Pike
look,
at the end. Pike at the end with like
okay,
I
okay.
appreciate Ensign Mount, but like that look on his face and then at the end he like looks into the and then to
Yeah,
be continued.
where
Cliffhanger is one thing, that's a different issue. But just
yeah, well,
the
well,
indecisiveness and this crew's looking at him like and I'm thinking like I don't know about you, dude. I don't know about you as a competent captain. You seem a little soft to me.
no, I mean,
Like
look.
I think to me number one is a better leader than him.
Okay, all right.
So I don't know.
Let me address the whole Erica thing. I don't think that she was saying that as like, "Ooh, what the hell is this, guys?" I think she said that because at that moment she had an idea, and that was just the way that it came out. Look, it came out dumb, and
Well, hold on. I got it right here. She says, "What's this stuff here?" As she's pointing at the debris,
all right.
and
Okay,
Una says,
I can't.
"Debris from the Cayuga."
Yeah, I can't.
And then Ortega's reacts, and she's like, "I mean, they're not shooting at that." So yes, you could imply that she knew, but she was just pointing it out. Sure, I can
Right.
accept that, but it's just
Right.
come on.
Look. As the when it comes to the way that Pike acts at the last second of this episode, I will say that look, the guy has been under stress. The woman that he loves could have been blown up or shot. He went against orders. He went into a area space he wasn't supposed to go in. He got his ass whooped, and there is a moment when I mean, it sounds like I am defending the guy, which I am. There is a moment that you got so many things in your head that you like can't fucking think straight. But with that being said, I would have much rather had Pike act much more forthright from the very beginning, because him standing in front of everybody with this stupid doe-eyed look on his face isn't going to do anything. Isn't going to do any goddamn good, because they need to get out of there right away. Because if they don't get out of there, they're all going to fucking die.
Yeah, it seems like the logical thing to pick up on in the next episode is Pike's like, "Let's leave." I think they left it up in the air because
No,
just imagine if at the very end, right before the to be continued, he said, "Let's go" or "Let's leave." It would be like, huh. But the fact that people are, it's going to leave people thinking, well, do they stay and fight or do they bail? It makes sense for them to bail and regroup and somehow get the help of other people, Starfleet or otherwise. But
right. The other thing that I want to bring to the table is maybe Pike reacted in the way that he reacted because he was thinking about the crew members that the Gorn stole, right? So maybe he's thinking, okay, if we leave, we're gonna live, but what about our people that the Gorn just took? If we leave, they're fucked. So how how am I going to be able to justify that to myself? I'm speaking hypothetically here, but I'm just throwing you possible things that can be going through Pike's head in that moment.
well, when Pike meets Batel on the planet, and Batel was mad at him for coming here, and she's like, "This is she." She even understands what Robert April understands is that like, this is something you can't protect us from. We're screwed. In other words, you coming here is now condemning you. And part of that at the end when Pike's like overwhelmed, I'm sure that part's going through his head is like, well, I defied orders. I went down there even though Patel didn't want me to. And now I'm in a situation where if I don't run, we all might die.
Right.
Or we might die and then they will be taken away. But the fact is, I suppose it's a better chance of regrouping and finding them later. Because obviously, I don't think there's much they can do now. Unless when we cut back to the next episode, the ships that are attacking them are inadequate for whatever reason. But who knows what's going to happen.
Yeah. The other thing that I really didn't like about this episode, I feel that the writers are sort of playing with our emotions. Everything they did with Chapel and Spock, with Chapel, sort of doing the SOS thing out the fucking window.
I'm not the only one who
flashlight.
pointed out that stupid flashlight. In the 23rd century, you don't have a flashlight that
Yeah.
is it's so dumb. It's so, and I remember I told you about there's this whole episode is not it's not in your face all the time. There's always like flashies going off.
Right.
And they do this in dramatic actiony parts in the show all the time. Every time there's fights with Klingons, it's like a lightning storm. And I don't like this whole dramatic effect of having flashing lights everywhere simply to remind the audience, oh, things are messed up. I think we're smart enough to know that, they're not using fluorescent goddamn lights in the 23rd. It's weird. And the same thing with the flash. And another thing too, she sees Spock and she's like, "Hey, Spock!" She like he can't hear. It's possible for him to hear any of that. And I guess in the heat of the moment, she doesn't realize. But of course, there's sound in space in Star Trek anyway, so who cares? But that flashlight part was stupid.
Yeah, no, but the thing that really ticks me off, and the only reason it ticks me off, I want to be clear, the only reason it ticks me off is because I'm such a fan of the iteration of Spock and the iteration of Chapel in this series, and I like them together as a couple. But the thing that fucking ticked me off is when they jet out of the Cayuga, or the saucer section of the Cayuga, the director purposely shows them kind of holding hands, and when they beam onto the ship again, Spock tries to say something, and and Chapel, in her haste to help everybody out, says, "Spock, we'll talk later. Save it." And I'm like, motherfucker, why are you gonna do this to us if you know that she's gonna fucking go with Kirby into the fucking internship? Why are the Strange New writers doing this to me? Because I'm like, fuck.
The Strange New Worlds writers are playing tiddlywinks with Spock's heartstrings, and it's not good. Like, they hold hands, and then she's like, "Yeah, no, it's a soft rejection when they get back in the ship." It's like, what's the what's the point? The holding hands is probably symbolic of friendship.
Yeah, but still,
in her eyes, but in Spock's eyes, he's probably like, "Well, maybe we should talk about this amazing experience we've been through together." By the way, this guy who plays Scotty, he has a really thick accent.
Yeah, he does.
More so than James Doohan did or Simon Pegg.
Simon Pegg, yeah.
And by the way, he's supposed to be 10 years older than Kirk.
Oh, really?
And Paul Wesley looks 10 years older than him. But anyway, doesn't matter.
No, I mean, I just want to ask you real quick. What did you think about the whole sequence with the Gorn almost killing Spock and Christine sort of saving the day, shooting the Gorn on the bridge, on the bridge of the Cayuga where there was no gravity?
That was the entertaining part of the episode for me, is when Chapel runs into the Gorn punching in the code and stuff at first. And then when Spock's on the bridge, by the way, all the visual effects and the production in this episode was really top of its game. It's probably the best of the season. So they really did put like a lot of visual effects effort. Like it's very cinematic. So like the planet stuff, the Cayuga exteriors, and like the camera shots, and all of it looks pretty good. If they only didn't have those goddamn flashing lights all the time. whatever. But when Spock sees the Gorn tail come down in the reflection, he turns around, he tries to shoot it, and thing whips the phaser, and Chapel runs in. It's like this kind of slow motion struggle because they're in 0G. I thought that was probably, in terms of action scenes that are non-space action scenes, is the best of the season. So I would acknowledge that part of, like, that was very well staged. People are running into the Gorn redesign and they'd rather see like something more like the original series. I maintain that you possibly could, in the next part, maybe see a different kind of Gorn. But I don't mind the redesign. I think the practical stuff and the animatronic face, I didn't know if it was CG or not when I first watched it. And that's a good sign, because I'm sure there were elements of CGI in certain parts, but it was very well blended. So that action sequence was really good. And I know Spock kills the dude, right? And we go back to Arena. Why isn't her Chapel, Spock, or Scotty ever mentioning, like, oh, those darn Gorn?
See, this is the problem.
Yeah, I know.
I'm just gonna say it
Who
once.
cares, right?
Yeah, no, I'm not gonna say that. Not gonna say that. Not gonna say that.
Okay.
But I do want to address something that I've said before, and you have said before, on both of our channels on this season. When you take legacy characters and you want to do something new with them, you run into problems like this. Look, I, for the most part, have enjoyed season 2 of Stranger Worlds. I think more than you, yes? But I will say that I think with part 2, I would really, really like it if they wrap up this Gorn shit and they go in another direction, and they go and introduce villains that don't exist in canon and don't exist in canon. And perhaps they could introduce some Strange New Worlds that we've never seen before. And the reason why I would like that is because if they do that, all these canonistas will have nothing to complain about. And we won't bump up against all the countless hours of Trek that have come before, because what they are going to show us, if they do it, is brand new.
Yeah. And
yeah,
you can certainly still show, like, an episode about Tellarites, something familiar. You can still do the familiar and fall back on, like, canon and show, like, this is the established world and we're recognizing elements of it. But, like, what about all the missions, like you say, where we're seeing species that we didn't ever see before in any other episode? I don't think people will necessarily be like, oh, well, we've never seen that species before, so why? Or what you could do is the kind of creative freedom they had in the animated TOS series from 1973, 1974. One of those years. Both years, probably. Where you can adapt for the first time with technology or CGI or animatronics characters that were in that series that had never been done in live action. Why not do a Strange New Worlds episode about the Caitians? How difficult would that be to have, like, I don't know, 10 actors all together playing different Caitians on a planet? Like, it would be ambitious, but, like, how would you pull that off? And how would you do the cat makeup on a live action person? That's what I'm wondering. Like, I'm wondering how Strange New Worlds would tackle even familiar elements that we've never seen live action, except for in the movies. Occasionally in the background, I know Caitians have been in live action in, I think, Star Trek 4 maybe. Right. But in terms of actual characters.
Yeah, is Dr.
Tana?
Tana, I feel so ashamed because I love Lord X. Is she a Caitian?
Yes.
Yeah, she's
it's all about the cat. It's all about the cat jokes with her.
It's all about the cat jokes. I mean, a short aside here, guys. I love Dr. Ta'ana. I don't think she gets enough. I think she's like incarnations of Bones and like a very very pissed off
Pulaski.
Pulaski. It's just so great. That fucker. Oh no, but wrapping up now. I the one thing that I would love to see in season two is more consistency. You mentioned it in our conversation from yesterday. You said if they come up with a nice mixture like they did in most of Star Trek Picard season three, it'll go down better for you. But if they keep doing this, one episode funny, and one episode not, and one episode funny, and then they throw this big heavy serialization at the very last, at the 11th hour in the 10th episode, it was like, I don't know how this really fit together because I thought the Gorn were going to be a bigger part of this season. They introduced the Gorn, or they hint at the Gorn at the very end of the first episode, and then they never talk about them again. And now we see them in episode 10. There was no build up to the Gorn coming into Federation space. We just saw them on a fucking scream I'm like, I feel that the writer should have built up on that, but the reason why they didn't do that is because they wanted to do sort of an imbalanced season, I feel.
And other people have pointed this out too, like what you're saying, it's inconsistent in writing quality, tone. It is consistent in production value and direction. The direction is usually good. However, if I was a director, I would make it a mandate, like minimize the flashy lights in broken places, because even in the 32nd century, this is happening, and it's like, what are these lights that they're using that are like going? It's just weird. It's weird. If you have a world where half a ship can be torn apart and life can be maintained for a certain amount of time through force fields and things of this nature, and like this advanced technology, the flashlights don't even work. I don't understand that. I mean, these are little things that they don't even, I'm sure they don't even think like, oh, well, it's a damaged ship. Of course the flashlight's, messed up or something. It's like, I would think little objects like that would be a little more durable, but whatever. And, probably have like infinite life. You have flashlights now that if there's no juice in it, you can crank it. You can actually do something with it and crank it and stuff. But anyway,
you can crank it. Yeah.
It's weird.
No,
I do like the spacesuits. Do you like the spacesuits?
Oh, I love the spacesuits.
I like the Starfleet and the Gorn.
Yeah, I love the spacesuits, and I also love. I don't. Well, you are with me for the episode, but I really, really love the medical suits that that Chopper were wearing and Mbenga were wearing for in the Cloak of Honor.
Under the Cloak of War.
Under the Cloak of War. I'm sorry. Thank you, PJ. I love the medical suits that they were wearing in that episode. So yeah, really, really nice looking uniforms. I believe they pop and they look really, really fucking cool. So what are you hoping for in season 3 of Stranger Worlds?
A more consistent tone. I don't mind like the occasional let's have a goofy episode, but I don't like the farcical nature in which they approach some of the material. And two great examples are charades, and Those Old Scientists. Oh, and Subspace Rhapsody as well, of course. Those 3 episodes in particular are, I get it. They're like, let's have fun. And certain portions of fans or just the audience are going to have fun. But there are others that it's a step too far when you have Those Old Scientists and it's very meta. And they're talking about like these time travelers can't contaminate the timeline, butterfly effect, this, that, and the other thing, but we don't actually care. And the characters demonstrate over and over again that they actually don't care. So if they're not taking their world seriously, why should I? That's my attitude. But then you have episodes like Ad Astra per Aspera, and Under the Cloak of War, which are deadly serious but pretty well executed and well written, and the characters are strangely somehow a bit more competent and smart in those episodes. I'm sure you could nitpick a bunch of stuff, but it's like, I don't know. It's just, it doesn't. Season 1, looking back in retrospect, had a pretty consistent tone. It was able to be fun and goofy at times, like that body swap episode. That's as far as they went in terms of goofiness, is the body swap episode. And that was enough for me. Like, that was the line where it's like, okay, I can have fun with this. But then when it's like, I'm the X, it's like, I don't want to see Spock doing that. Sorry. And it's not anything against musicals. I like 3 songs in that thing, but it no. And but Pike actually does reference the previous episode in this.
Yes, he does.
He's like, at least we're not singing and dancing every 5 minutes. I like that line. So okay.
Yeah, at least we're not singing. No, I would like a better mixture. Also, I would like a little bit more serialization, and I would like them to build up the big bad of the season, whatever it's going to be. I would like them to constantly drop hints as to what the bigger picture of what the team is going to be, or what the crew is going to be dealing with for the rest of the season. So I would like a little bit of more consistency. You can still be funny, but don't take it as far as they did with the musical episode. I liked Charades because of the Spock and Chapel thing, but I could see where a person like you is coming from. I liked those old scientists for only one reason, because of the lower decks nature of it. But again, I could see where you're coming from. But all in all, I would love to see for season 3, whenever that happens. All in all, I would love to see more consistency and new villains, for the love of God. Stop writing Star Trek on the back of what came before. Introduce some new stuff so you won't run into canon problems, and you won't have fans taking it apart and yelling at you online and whining because it messes what came before. I understand that they want to add classic things to. I understand that they want to add layers to classic characters, but if you don't create good stories with classic characters, don't do that. Do something else. Anyway, PJ, if the good folks at home want to catch you and your adventures online, what will be the place for them to do that?
Boatrek, Boatrek, on YouTube.
Awesome. And thank you for sitting here for most of the episodes this season and reviewing the season with me. It was a whole lot of fun.
Yeah, it's been fun. Thanks.
Thanks
for coming on my channel too.
Oh yeah. No doubt. But thank you for being here for most weeks.
Thank you.
All right, guys. So that'll do it for my reviews of Star Trek Discovery Strange New Worlds Season 2. If you like what I do, you can catch me on X or Twitter. I'm at CreekFanatic88, but as I often say, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you when I see you.
So much happened here, and so much is about to.